Welcome everyone to Teams Nation, the monthly meetup for February. I can't believe that it's almost March already. This year is going past so quickly. So I'm Chris Hord. My name is Chris. I'm from here in the UK. I'm partner education lead for Vusion. I'm part of the Teams Nation team, along with Adam Deltinger, Vesku Nopanen, and Chris Webb. So Adam and Vesku are on this call today. Vesku, do you want to say hello, Adam?
Hello everyone, and it's going to be interesting meeting. I'm really looking forward for this Microsoft Craft Day because of these amazing people we have from Microsoft presenting us.
Yes, guess we've got an absolutely fun kind of just over an hour ahead. And for anyone who's not joined the monthly meetup so far and wants to understand a bit of what Team Nation is all about. So we're a user group that started back in 2019. So it's been over 2 years since we were first established. We used to be called the European Teams User Group and then changed our name to Teams Nation Monthly Meetup. We just thought it was better and more inclusive, and we were looking to change the name for some time. So what we're all about, we're really about creating a network of Teams professionals. All of us love Teams, all of us like its underlying technologies such as SharePoint and OneDrive, and all of us like our extensibility options. So taking Teams as a platform and really starting to customize it to our needs. We're also about providing opportunities to present and share. So every single month of the year, we have 2 more speakers to come along and give their take on any aspect of Microsoft Teams. Today is Graph Day. We'll be introducing our speakers shortly, but every single month, and we try to kind of change it up a little bit. So one month we'll talk about unified communications, and another we'll talk about governance, and another we'll talk about security, in order to keep it fresh throughout the year. And really, I guess what's our most defining tenet of all is that we want to really democratize knowledge and experience. So Adam, Vesku, Chris, and myself, we all work for corporates. We all work on a day-to-day basis with Microsoft 365 and Azure technologies. So for us, this user group is all about giving back and, like the name change, moving beyond a European name to really embracing and including everyone. We want to democratize that knowledge and share it with everyone so that it can help them, so that they can find their jobs easier and they can enjoy it more. Okay, so if you want to speak, if you come along to any of our events, then we're always on the lookout for new speakers. So you will see the link there, https://teamsnation.rocks/CFS. You just need to go to that address and you'll be asked a couple of questions as to what you would like to speak about. We openly embrace all backgrounds, all levels of knowledge, all experiences. In fact, we really like it if you haven't spoken at an event before and you come along and we give you a platform in order to be able to do that. So if you're thinking about wanting to speak at Ignite in the future, or speak at something like SharePoint Saturday or the Microsoft 365 Virtual Marathon, then this is a really good opportunity to do that. So we're always on the lookout. We've had, in the course of our history, 36 speakers. We've set up 3 conferences. We've got our 4th, which we'll talk about today, and we now stand at over 270 members. So the fact that we've just had this meetup open for 3 months, we're growing quite fast. And so please feel free to welcome all, or should I say invite other people inside your organizations or people who you think might benefit from this. So there's loads of ways to get involved with us. Twitter, Meetup, our site at teamsnation.rocks/2021. You can always, in the monthly meetup, speak, or in our conferences also speak. We have a YouTube channel where all the recordings are made, so you can watch them back anytime on demand. And again, they're always going to be free for you, and LinkedIn as well. So there's many ways that you can interact with us. Adam, Vesku, Chris, and myself all have Twitter accounts, all have LinkedIn. Please feel free to reach out. So the agenda for today, we're going to talk about very quickly about Teams Nation Bangladesh, which is coming up this week. This is our first regional meetup. We have got an update on our major conference that's taken place in May. We've got our speakers for today, and then we're going to cap it with some important events. So let's get straight in there and talk about Teams Nation Bangladesh. So Teams Nation Bangladesh is a small pop-up conference that we've organised in Dhaka in Bangladesh this Wednesday. It's the first of what we would call our kind of regional meetups. So we were looking for some people to work with in a country to create another meetup that's regional and is bilingual. So again, it's kind of moving towards just being much more inclusive. We've had the meetup since we've started. We've had the monthly meetup, but we really wanted to kind of extend into other regions, and we met a few people, and this is the result of that. So we have Rez on the call. So we're working with Rez in Bangladesh. Rez, would you like to come and speak a few words about Wednesday? Vesku, do you want to make Rez a presenter?
Yeah, just did it.
Brilliant. Rez, would you like to come on and speak and just about a little bit about the day?
Hello, Jess. Good morning. Good morning, team. I hope you all are well. So thank you so much, Jess, for your nice introduction for this event, and I'm so excited to start this event in Bangladesh for the first time, and because the Bangladeshi people are still using Skype for Business for their organization, and as well as they are actually not aware about Microsoft Teams and how it works and how it develops. So so there's a very good opportunity for everyone to start a new community and start a new meetup in every month. So yes, I would like to invite all of you to join this call because I know that it will be a very nice event, and I actually need all of you to enjoy this event in your local time. And yes, for me, let me introduce myself because I know I'm new in this community. So my name is Rizwan Rahman. So I'm actually working as a senior technical lead in Microsoft 365 Global Support Team. So I'm not directly working at Microsoft, but I'm working with Microsoft under Upwork. And as well as I'm the Windows Insider MVP, and I worked at Microsoft in Bangladesh and Sri Lanka for the last 4 years as a technical evangelist. And now actually I'm working with the support engineer for Microsoft 365 global team. So this is my short introduction, and I hope and I wish everyone will join this event. And thank you, Shiz, and thank you, Teams Nation, for your kind association with us. So yep, thank you.
Thanks ever so much, Rez. It's going to be a great event. As you can see, it's only a small pop-up conference, but we have some really great speakers. Vesku is speaking, Carolina Ketakari, Patrick Guillemot, Mar Lambie, Peter Rising, and myself, and that's going to be going over the course of the day. So it's 12 to 6 in Bangladesh time, so that's earlier for us here in Europe. So I think it's 7 until 1 p.m. Central European time. You can sign up on our meetup site, teamsnation.rocks/Bangladesh. We hope to see you there. It's going to be great. Next, we have an update on the community conference. So this is the big one. This is the big event that we always organize once or twice a year. So where are we at with it? So we've completed all the setup phase. Currently, we're in the call to speakers. We're about halfway through that call for speakers period. If you want to apply to speak at the conference, sessionize.com/Teamsnation. The call for speaker is going to be open until March the 31st, and currently we've probably got somewhere in the region of about 300 submissions for it at the moment. It's of course, it's always really popular. At the end of the call for speakers, we'll go into that commit phase in April, and then the event will take place on May the 16th. So headlining, we've got a lot of great names this time around. So Jeff Teeper, Rish Tandon, Caruana, and Charles Lamanna, amongst others. This is just going to be a really, really exciting event. Overall, we anticipate that we'll have just over 100 speakers. We have got several, or should I say, actually 11 tracks this time around. So the ones in blue are the ones you may be familiar with from past events, but we are changing it up. We always try to keep it fresh. The build and extend tracks have been merged together into one track, and the tracks that you see there in green, they're all completely new tracks. And each track, I think, holds about 11 sessions, so that'll be 44 new sessions in all of these different tracks. In addition, we'll have our community lounge again. So those new tracks, let's just take a quick focus on them. One of them is table talks and unconference. So what that means is that we will see submissions from several community members who will get together and talk on a subject. So you can think it's like a panel session, as it will, or it could be I guess a presentation which several work on together, very much in the format of Ignite. We also have the SharePoint, OneDrive, Yammer and String track, the SOIS track. That will be sessions that will be purely on the underlying technologies of Microsoft Teams, so SharePoint, OneDrive, Yammer and String. In addition to Teams Nation France and Germany, these are tracks that will be in the French and German languages, and they are going to be arranged by Patrick and AMS, and the German track with Raphael and Teams Community Day. So we really wanted to go beyond just speaking in the English language, and we're going to have French and German tracks this year. So we keep kind of trying to innovate, keep trying to work on feedback, and this conference is going to be as big as ever. So one new thing that we can state today, because that was almost recapping what we announced in the last month, is that registration opens on Tuesday the 2nd of March. So if we think about day one of Microsoft Ignite, then registration for Teams Nation on May the 26th is going to open. So there's going to be a kind of a 3-month window to register for the event. That's something we're very excited about. We'll be shouting it all over social on that day. So we very much hope to see you at the conference. Last time around, I think we had somewhere in the region of 1,300 attendees. We'd really like to break 2,000 this time, and we're going to have a really big lineup. So that's everything I had to say and got it out of the way. That's a little bit more than we usually do at the start, just because there's so much going on at the moment. Today is all about Graph Day, and we have Bettirose and Elise who is speaking today. Very much looking forward to have them. Thank you ever so much for coming along today. Bettirose, do you want to start off? I think we'll just get straight into the speaking.
Okay, thank you so much, Chris, for that introduction. I didn't know that the Teams Nation is such a powerful and has a really broad reach, so it was good learning from you. So I'm going to share my screen. We are actually 3 presenters. There's me, Elise, and we pulled in Daryl Miller. He's going to also be a speaker today. So can I go ahead and share my screen?
Absolutely, please.
Okay, thank you. Okay, you can all see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Yes, that's looking good.
Okay, great. Okay, so my name is Bettirose Ngugi. I am a program manager at Microsoft, working on Microsoft Graph developer experience, and I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya. So today I will be presenting together with 2 of my colleagues, Elise and Daryl Miller. Maybe they can just say hi.
Hi, I'm Elise. I am the PM for Microsoft Graph Toolkit.
Great.
Hi, I'm Daryl. I'm an API architect on Microsoft Graph.
Okay, great. So we can look at the agenda. And we are going to start with a short introduction of Microsoft Graph. Then I'm going to show you a Graph Explorer demo, how you can do experimentation using Graph Explorer. And then Elise will come in and talk about Microsoft Graph Toolkit. And then Daryl will come in with the PowerShell SDK, then we can close in with some Q&A. If you have any questions, you can post them on the chat notification window, And Vespu or Chris, you can just interrupt as we speak, and we can try and answer those questions, or we can pack them till the end of the session and answer them in bulk. Okay, so the first thing is when you talk about Microsoft Graph is you look at the opportunity. And on the screen, it just shows you some numbers that tell you how big the opportunity is. 200 million enterprise M365 monthly active users. Over 265K monthly active application. On the daily, there's about 30 billion collaboration minutes. And 90% of Fortune 500 have data in Microsoft Graph. There's also 115 million daily active users on Teams alone. So the numbers on the screen just show you how big of an opportunity it is for you, either for your organization or for just you creating an application to create a new revenue model for your organization or improve productivity in your organization. And just to give you a look at some of the companies that we have that are already using Microsoft Graph. This is just a small snippet of some of the companies that are already using Microsoft Graph. And you may be wondering, what really is Microsoft Graph? And the story will start from, you probably use O365, you also probably use Windows 10, and you also probably have heard of Enterprise Mobility and Security, which is the tool that organizations use to enhance security and also ensure that when ensuring that their employees are able to access data in the organization using their personal devices without worrying about security issues. And so these three tools combined, they create the M365. And when we went to the cloud, it brought an opportunity for us to create one endpoint or one gateway to access all the data sitting in M365 or in these three tools. And Microsoft Graph is the Microsoft data that describes pattern of productivity, identity, and security in an organization. In a nutshell, it's the data and insights sitting in M365. So to take it into perspective, if you were to think of yourself as a user, and the user, this being me, has so many channels and conversations that they have. This user also has files. This user also has several devices, like I access my mail from my mobile phone and also from my laptop. And they also have tasks, mails, events, security, and groups as well. And so these are all data points for you as a person. And when you think of this person, I am also interacting with so many other people in an organization. I am going to meetings, I'm receiving emails from other people, I'm attending events and etc. And so on and so forth. And all these data might give you an understanding of give you some trends and insights that you can actually use to improve productivity. So for example, when you're on your Word document and you'd want to collaborate with someone else, and so you mention their name on that document, and when you just write @ and the first letters of their name, you get a whole list of people with the first few names being people you have collaborated with. That is an example of Microsoft Graph in place. If you're writing an email, for example, and you start typing the name of the person you want to send it to, and you get suggestions, with the first suggestions being the people you have collaborated with, those are data and insights coming from Microsoft Graph. And in the industry, we can talk about a few partner teams or partner companies that have created applications on Microsoft Graph and discuss what they've been able to do with it. And so let's start with DocuSign, for example. So DocuSign implements a graph to enable seamless integration with e-signature. So DocuSign allows organization to, it tries to make the agreement process for organization easier. And so what they do is they have used Microsoft Graph to ensure that whenever you sign a document, a notification is sent to everyone else, and there's a good workflow for till where the document is, and all this is enabled by Microsoft Graph. AvePoint takes advantage of Microsoft Graph to create an immersive visual experience that reveals topics, people, and content users might even know or need, just to improve productivity. And lastly, an interesting company called Approved Contact, it integrates Microsoft Graph so that you can, organizations that collaborate with other organizations are able to share their calendars, and so people can know how your calendar looks like before they book it. And this makes scheduling of meetings even more efficient. And that's a small example, a few examples of how our partner teams have been able to create value for their customers through Microsoft Graph. And so let's look at Microsoft Graph. Look at Microsoft Graph in play, and we are going to use a learning tool that we have that we call Graph Explorer. And this is a learning tool that enables you to do experimentation. So if you're in the process of creating an application through Microsoft Graph, it can be the tool that you use to actually experiment and also see if the query URL that you're using is actually right and the kind of data you can get so that you can know how to display it in your application. So I'm going to move to my browser and show you. Okay, so this is Graph Explorer, and this is how it looks. Just to give you an overview of like the whole tool, we have some samples on this side, and these samples is a small snippets or some of the endpoints that we have on Graph API. On this area, this is where you make your request, and this is where you see your response. For example, this is the URL that I would want to query in Graph API. If I run this query, it's going to give me back some sample data because I am not logged in. So it's going to give me some sample data on Megan. If I wanted to, for every data that you access in Graph API, you need to have the right permissions to access it. So permissions is an integral part of the design of the API. And so for permissions, we have the Modify Permissions tab, which lists all the permissions that you require to query or to run the query that you have on the address bar. At the moment, since I am not logged in, we are not going to see the consent button. But the moment I log in, we are going to see the consent button. So if you want to add your request body or add some request headers, this is where you come in. And if you want to see your access token, this is where it will be displayed, but you need to be signed in to see it. This is where you see the response headers. If you want to see some of the code snippets in 4 different programming languages that you can easily pick and use these in your application to run this query or implement this query in your application, this is where you come to the code snippets tab. And we have 4 different programming languages represented: the C#, Java, JavaScript, Java, and Objective-C. The Toolkit component, which you're going to learn about through Elise today, is a UI tool that enables you to create a nice UI component without necessarily having to go through the whole development journey. By using the MGT toolkit that Elise is going to teach us about, you can just copy this code into your application, and you're going to get such kind of UI components in your application. Adaptive Cards is a similar tool, UI tool as well, that also enables you to create a nice UI out of just reusing the libraries and the templates that Adaptive Cards has created for you. So I'm going to sign into Graph Explorer so that we can look at some of the queries that you can make on Graph Explorer and see the responses. So we are going to use just some of the sample queries that we have on display. So for my profile, if you run this query, it is going to give you data about you. In this case, it will give you my business phone, my display name, given name, my job title, my mobile phone, if I had it filled in, my office location, preferred language, surname, and everything. If you want a bit more data, this is the query that you run, yeah, the profile query. And we also have some that are related to Microsoft Teams. So like if I wanted to see the teams that I have joined, or if I wanted to see members of a certain team that I am part of. You realize that Graph Explorer will give you a tip telling you that this query requires a group ID, which is true. The group ID is not filled in here, and it tells you how to get the group ID. So for the group ID, I'd need to run the group first. And then once I run, then if I can pick the ID, any of the ID, then place it here, then I can see the members. But at the moment, this is empty, but it should give me the members. I can also have a look at so many other aspects of teams and conversations. So let's see if you're able to run these. Okay, it says resource not found. So if I wanted to look at, say, let's see, like the groups sample queries here, you will see the kind of data you are able to see. And for each of these, we also give you the code snippets as well. Realize that the code snippets change as you're changing the query on the URL bar. If you don't find the permissions that you require on this list, because this is something that is still in preview, so we don't have the full list of permissions, we have another option under this settings gear, which is called the select permissions, that gives you the full list of permissions in Graph API. So you can also use this if you already know the permissions that you already require beforehand, and you can consent to all of them in bulk if you wish. So there are other features, like you can change the theme, which are pretty much like the UI features mostly. But on the application side, the best way to experiment and create application and learn about Microsoft Graph API is for you to come in here and add in your queries and run them so that you can see the kind of data that you're able to get from the Graph API. And this way, it gives you a good sense of what is the kind of data, how do you write the queries, and there's an interesting aspect of it that if you're just typing, it's able to suggest for you, to make suggestions for you so that you don't have to remember the full syntax as well, which we call the autocomplete. So this is just a short snippet of Graph Explorer and some of the things you'd be able to do with it. And I'm going to pass over now to Elise to tell us about Graph Toolkit component.
Thanks, Betty. I will take over the presentation. I'm hoping you can see my screen.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, you can see your screen.
Okay, so yeah, Betty covered kind of an overview of what Microsoft Graph is, what data is available, as well as like how to use Graph Explorer to explore the APIs and what you can get back from Microsoft Graph. And I'm going to cover Microsoft Graph Toolkit, which is actually something you can use to easily build graph connected applications. So quick overview. The Microsoft Graph Toolkit is a library of reusable UI components and authentication providers that work automatically with Microsoft Graph. So we have components which are bound to data, and that means that the components handle all of the work to call the Graph APIs and then render the data in a UI that already looks and feels like a Microsoft 365 experience, so that you can really easily kind of drag and drop these components into your app and have them all hooked up to the APIs and the data that they need. And the toolkit also has a set of authentication providers, which help you handle and implement all of the auth with the Microsoft Identity Platform so that your app can talk to Microsoft Graph and get data. And the toolkit is all built on web standards, so you can use it anywhere that you use HTML, and it works great when you build web apps, PWAs, SharePoint web parts, or Microsoft Teams tabs. So the beauty of the toolkit is that it kind of helps to simplify your integration with Microsoft Graph so that you can get an app up and running super quickly and easily. The components are all fully functional, so they work out of the box. It helps to cut your development time, make your code simpler, as well as allowing you to focus kind of on the value of your app and the features it provides rather than the underlying calling of the APIs or recreating experiences that you see a lot in first-party apps like Teams. And the components and the providers are all based on the Fluent UI design language, so they look like a Microsoft 365 experience, but you're also able to fully customize the components to your app and your branding easily with templating as well as with our custom CSS properties. And like I mentioned before, the components work everywhere that HTML works. You can use it with any web framework like React or Vue or Angular, as well as with plain JavaScript, and it's compatible with all modern browsers. So these are the components that we have available in the toolkit right now. And I think the best way to kind of explore them and learn more about how they work is actually to go to our component playground at mgt.dev. So I will just show that really quick. This is our component playground. So you can go here to kind of see samples of all of the components that we have in the toolkit, and you can interact with them directly in the playground, as well as kind of play around with the code snippets and add properties or attributes that modify what the component looks like. So for example, this is our agenda component, and it's retrieving all of the signed-in users' agenda events through Microsoft Graph and then rendering them in a UI that looks like this. And I can kind of change the code. So if I wanted to, for example, group these events by day, I can add that attribute or property and it will update on the spot. So some of our most popular components that we see used is the login component, which helps users sign in, provides a button, and then once they sign in, you can see some basic information about their profile. We have a people component, which kind of renders a list of people that are most relevant to you, or you can choose which people are rendered. We have a people picker where you can search for people, select them, and use this in your app to further do something with the people. A component that we see used pretty often is our person component with the person card. So this displays a user's profile picture. You can hover over to see their person card, which you similarly see in experiences like Outlook or Teams. You can view their contact information, their org chart, as well as just more information about their profile. And we also have a tasks and to-do component. Tasks uses Planner to just get tasks and display them, and then to-do is using the new to-do API on Graph this user doesn't have any tasks currently, so it won't show. And then going back. Presentation. Yeah, so then the providers that we have in the toolkit currently include MSAL, Teams, SharePoint. We have a proxy provider for if you want to use your own backend to build your app, as well as a custom provider and an Electron provider is coming soon for desktop apps. So to get started with the toolkit, as Betty mentioned before, you can kind of see what components are available and what queries have components associated with them in Graph Explorer. If you run a sample query and then go to the toolkit tab in Graph Explorer, it'll show you the component as well as the code in order to add that component to your own app. And we also have a bunch of different getting started guides in our documentation, which is at aka.ms/mgt-docs. And these are just step-by-step guides that walk you through how to set up a project with the toolkit and start adding your authentication and your first components. And then for this Teams Nation meetup, I thought it'd be cool to show how to build a Teams tab app, get it up and running and set up with Microsoft Graph Toolkit and connect it to Microsoft Graph data. So I'm just going to go through that now. Let me switch to my demo. Okay, so for this demo, I'm going to use the Microsoft Teams Toolkit, which is an extension in Visual Studio Code that you can install and use to really quickly get a Teams app scaffolded and up and running. So here I have the Teams Toolkit installed, and I'm just going to create a new Teams app. And it will ask me to sign in. Okay. So I'm using the Teams Toolkit, and I'm going to choose Add a Tab for this demo and give my app a name. So Teams Nation demo. I'm just going to pick a personal tab for now, and then when I click Finish, it'll ask me to choose a folder and then generate the scaffolding for a Teams app for me. And once it loads, you can see that now in my project folder, I have a bunch of files. It has like all the setup I need in order to start building a Teams app. And in order to test this, if you go to the Teams Toolkit extension, it gives you all of the instructions for how to install and run the app. Here you go. So here in the README, it tells you how to get the project up and running. All you have to do is run npm install and npm start. So I am going to do that. So that's just going to install the dependencies in that project. And while that runs, I am going to actually register an application in the Azure portal. So in order to connect your application to Microsoft Graph, you need to register an app and get your client ID. So if you go to the portal, the Azure portal, and go to Azure Active Directory, And then you can build app registrations. Okay. So in app registrations, I'm just going to create a new registration. Just give my app a name. I'm going to pick accounts in any directory and then click register. Okay. Once I have created that app, then I need to set up the authentication. So here, I'm going to add a platform and pick web. And then I need to provide the app what redirect URI I'm going to be using in my authentication flow. So in this case, since this is just a test app, I'm going to use localhost H. And you'll need to select access tokens and ID tokens to allow the implicit flow. Okay. And then what you'll need later when setting up the toolkit is just this application client ID. This is still downloading. Okay. So this is the toolkit documentation, and I'm just going to be mostly following the Teams Getting Started guide that we have. So build a Microsoft Teams tab. This is our step-by-step Getting Started guide that walks you through how to set up a Teams tab, as well as how to add the toolkit and how to add authentication as well as components in order to get the app running. I see in the chat that there was a comment about ngrok. So I think the new version of Teams Toolkit, you actually don't need ngrok to tunnel the app, and you can just use localhost. Okay. So while we wait for that, I'm just going to start adding the toolkit to my application. So in order to add the toolkit, you need to add the toolkit loader. You also need the Teams SDK, and you can just add it to your app by copying and pasting these scripts. I go back to my project and go to my index.html. This is going to be the main page that I'll be working off of. So here I'm going to add in the toolkit and the Teams SDK. And then in the body, in order to implement authentication, I'm going to use Teams Provider from the Microsoft Graph Toolkit. So this talks to Teams and make sure everything is there in order for your app to talk to Microsoft Graph. And this is just what you need. This is the Teams Provider, and you'll need to provide it 3 things, which is the client ID, the auth pop-up URL, as well as the permission scopes that you plan to use in your app. So let's do the body. I need to add my client ID, which is what I got from registering my app earlier. And then for my auth pop-up URL, I'm just going to use the auth.html, and that pop-up is just going to handle the authentication flow. So I'll create that page in a second. And then I'll also need to provide what scopes I plan to use in my app. Come back to. And then I need to create this auth HTML page for the pop-up for Teams to use. I'm just going to add a new file. And then HTML page. And then similarly to the index.html page, I just need to add in the Teams SDK and then the Microsoft Graph Toolkit. And all this page needs to do is to call the mgt.teamsprovider.handleAuth method, and this will implement all of the authentication for you. It's still going. And then, so I have the Teams provider, which handles all of the auth for me, and then I can start adding in my toolkit components. So for example, if I wanted to add the login component, I can just do so like this. And then I will also add the agenda components. So with the toolkit, we recommend providing the permission scopes that you plan to use in your app to the provider. This makes it a better user experience so that they're not presented multiple consent screens when a new component is loaded. So if you provide them all up front, it helps it just give them one consent screen where they can consent to all of the permissions that that app is asking for. And the way that you can find which permissions that you need to provide is to go to each component's documentation page. For example, if you go to the login component and then go to the permissions section, it'll tell you what permissions that component needs. So this one is the same as the person component. So I will go there. And the control, depending on how you use it, will use these permissions. For the way that it is right now, all we need is user.read. And then I'll do the same for the agenda component, where I go to the components page. And then go to permissions, and it tells me that it needs calendars.read, user.read basic.all, people.read, and contacts.read. And that is pretty much everything I need in order to create a Teams tab that has user authentication with the login component that displays their profile information when they're logged in, as well as an agenda component that's going to get all of the users' events from Graph and display them in a list on the page. So if this is finally done, I am going to start my application. It's going to take a bit to start. And then in order to actually see my Teams tab application running within Teams, I can go back to the Teams Toolkit and then go to App Studio. Sign in again. Okay, so with App Studio, I can just leave everything as is for now since I'm just testing. And then if I go to Test and Distribute, I can actually install my Teams tab application into Teams. This will work. It's taking a bit to start up. Still waiting for my server to start. Okay, having trouble getting my, I think I have too many things running right now, so it's taking a bit. But yeah, once this loads, you should be able to see a Teams tab that shows you a login button. And then once you sign in as the user, it will show you the agenda component and all of that user's events. So as I mentioned before, we have a step-by-step getting started guide in our documentation for building a Teams tab. And I would highly recommend this if you're interested in learning more about the toolkit and how you can add the toolkit to a Teams tab, implement auth, as well as add components. And then I would also recommend we have a, let's see, where did it go? We also have a step-by-step tutorial that was created by Aicha, who is one of the cloud developer advocates at Microsoft. And she did a really good job of putting together a guide for how you would build a one productivity hub solution using the toolkit in Teams. This also walks you step by step through how to set up your environment, how to use Teams toolkit, and then how to get integrated with Microsoft Graph. And I think my app is finally running. So I'm going to add the app to my Teams account. And then it shows you, this is kind of the generic text that's or code that's included with the Teams Toolkit application. And here, this is the Microsoft Graph Toolkit login component. So I can sign in as a user, accept the permissions for the data that it is asking for. And then once it redirects, here you'll see that now I'm signed in as Megan Bone into my app. And these are all of the events that Megan has on her calendar, which is retrieved using the Graph Calendar Events API. And they're rendered by the toolkit in this UI. And then from here, you can continue adding any of the other components from the toolkit super easily. You just have to make sure that you add the permissions that the component is asking for into the Teams provider. And yeah, I will put the links to the Getting Started guide as well as the this tutorial for how to build a one productivity hub in Teams. And I think next is Daryl, who is going to cover the PowerShell SDK.
I believe that's the plan. Okay, let me share my screen. Thank you, Elise. Play from current slide. Okay, so we're going to transition a little bit from we've got the kind of intro, Graph Explorer, exploring, learning all about Graph. We've talked about how to build applications really quick and embed it into teams, but now we're going to talk a little bit about exploring all of that rich ecosystem of data in the Microsoft Graph in a different modality using a shell, using Microsoft PowerShell. And so the Microsoft Graph PowerShell is one module, all your data, always. And when I say one module, what historically in Microsoft, we have had different teams produce PowerShell libraries for their area if it happened that there were a fairly significant existing PowerShell community around that particular part of the API. So what we ended up with a variety of different PowerShell modules, but not covering all of the Graph API. Now, so our team, we own all of the SDKs. So we build the .NET SDK, the Java, the JavaScript, and we have the infrastructure in place to be able to generate across all of the Microsoft Graph service area. And so we took on the task of creating this Microsoft Graph PowerShell library that would have access to all of your data, not just the V1 data, but also the beta metadata. And it will always be available because we are now regularly updating this. We're still not quite to where we want to be. We want to be on a weekly cadence because Microsoft Graph metadata gets updated on a weekly. New things are being added all the time. And we want to be able to ship you new PowerShell capabilities constantly so that as soon as new capabilities come out, those capabilities are made available to you via PowerShell immediately. Now, like all good slogans, like there's a little bit of hand waving going on there. So I have the fine print, and you should always read the fine print. When I say one module, you can definitely install it from one module, but under the covers, it's actually about 35 different modules, and it gets a little big. So if you need to just write a script, for example, that uses just one part, you can actually pull down just that smaller module. And I say always, but as I say, we haven't quite got there to being always up to date. And it is a generated library. And we can only infer so much usability and semantics from the API definition. And it does end up creating PowerShell libraries that look and feel a lot like the APIs. Now, if you're used to the APIs, that's good because you can infer a set of conventions, but it doesn't necessarily produce a beautiful handcrafted experience for all particular scenarios. So what we're actually doing is working with individual teams like the AAD team, the Intune team, and they're going to build richer scenario-based modules that extend the core Microsoft Graph PowerShell in order to give you these simpler, easier to use, more sophisticated scenario commandlets. So between the two sets, the Microsoft Graph PowerShell SDK will always cover the full breadth of capabilities, and then these scenario-based ones will give you richer experience. So watch out for those coming in the coming year. But enough slide. Let's actually go and see a little bit how this works. And I'm just going to move a few windows around here, and I'm going to, yeah, I'm presenting, but Teams still wants to show me stuff. Okay. I'm going to switch over onto this second screen, and I'm going to see if I can. No, that's going to bring me back to the other screen. There we go. Okay, I'm going to assume that you can see my screen here, even though I'm on a second desktop. So how do
we
you...
don't see your screen.
Oh, you don't see the screen? Well, that sucks. Okay, well then I'll go old school route. Okay. It's funny, I thought sharing on Teams actually did work. Let's just bring those screens back over. We'll do a single desktop. Okay, you see my screen. Oh, you know what? I think it killed sharing when I moved over. You see my screen now, right?
Yes, now we can see it.
Okay, excellent. In order to find out how to get started with Microsoft Graph PowerShell, go to your favorite search engine and type Graph PowerShell. And there you go. It takes you into our Getting Started docs. You can go up to the installation section here, and you can see how to install the module with just simply install module Microsoft Graph. It lives over here on the PowerShell gallery, so you can always check to see if there are new versions that have been deployed up in there. And we have full instructions as to how to go and access both the V1 and access the beta, because by default, you will only get capabilities available in the V1 API. You have to kind of switch over to a different profile to see the beta commands, so it avoids you accidentally using beta commands. We have a mechanism, instructions here as to how to define what scopes you need to use. I'll show you all of this in a moment. And because this is generated from the API, we have a set of conventions as to how you can identify, this is what the corresponding PowerShell commandlet would be for this particular API. We have instructions also here on how to do app-only scripts, if you want to do unattended scripts that you want to run. And because this really is an SDK, if you click over into our regular SDK, how to make various requests, you'll see all the different languages, including PowerShell. Now, we are working to bring all of these examples in all of our reference documentation that we currently show in different languages over for PowerShell 2. And when we have that capability, you'll also see it over in Graph Explorer, and you'd be able to go into Graph Explorer and make a call to an API and then see what the corresponding PowerShell is. So these ones are some that we've hand coded for common scenarios of how to use the library. Now, if I go back over to here, I can kind of get a feel for commands that are available. I can say get that command, and we have them all prefixed with MG as the prefix. And you can see there's a whole lot of these things that are available. There's around about 8,000 commandlets at the moment, because the graph surface area is pretty large. And if I go and try and use like something that the most basic thing, let's just go and do MG user, and we have auto. Well, that's a little long. Let's just pick get MG user. I'm going to try running this, and it's going to say, well, no, you can't. You actually need to authenticate. So we're going to call connect graph, and there is a parameter on here called scopes. Now, just like Elise was showing with regards to having to consent to an application, you also, when you first work with the Graph PowerShell, you have to consent to allow it to be able to access your data. This is really important to prevent those kind of phishing scenarios where somebody sends you off a script and say, hey, can you run this script? And it does all these things that you potentially don't want it to do. So I have already pre-consented a whole bunch of scopes, so I can just do connect graph, and it will know from previously what I've consented it to. We have a little device code flow login here, so I'm just going to just click over here to make sure it hits the right browser. And I'm going to grab this code here, and wonderfully now Windows Terminal just allows me to control click on a link in there. It brings me over to browser, which doesn't want to show the page. Pause momentarily, fill in with commentary. Say, fine, okay, be like that. We'll go to, oh, no, I was just really impatient. There we go. Okay, and we paste in our code. And it's going to ask me to sign in. So I'm signing into a demo tenant with the administrator account. And I'm going to go back over to here. And now I'm going to try again my getMG user. And there we go. We come back to the list of users that are in this particular tenant. Now, you can use this and you can use the same standard PowerShell commands to filter on this. But if you filter using where object, what it's actually doing is bringing all of those entries back over the network in order to be able to filter it. So to be more efficient, what we can actually do is just use the standard OData capabilities, which is the filter mechanism. So I can now say display name equals administrator friend in there. Okay, and I have to put an extra colon. There we go. We bring back just that particular person. I'm going to throw that into a variable. User equals that. And I now have my user ID. And if I format that as a list, you'll see there's all kinds of information about that user. Basically, all the information that's available on Graph. Some of this information you might have to explicitly select, just like in the API. You might have to add a select parameter and say specifically what you want. So you can say, just bring me back these properties. Again, for efficiency, because we're going across the network, we may want to limit the properties that actually come back over the wire. So we have our user object. Let's talk about Teams things. So we can do mg user joined, oh, not join group, join team, and say user ID. And let's do team, no, user, $user.id. Okay, we're going to bring back that list of teams. And if we can do that same filter mechanism here where we say display name mail. About that, let's store that off in a variable so that we don't have to deal with IDs, those GUIDs. Okay, now, well, what else can we do? We've got the retail team. Well, what channels does that? Well, actually, let's go and just grab the team just to make sure that all of that works. I can access the team directly with the team ID. And so I say team.id. There we go. We brought this back. And I can now go and get all the things related to it. So if I do here and I can get the channel file folders, file folder content, channel members, messages, all kinds of channel tabs, all kinds of stuff related to it. So let's just go grab the channel. And we'll tell it the team ID is $team.id. Only I could type. And these are the two channels. And so I could grab one of these IDs here. And I can go and say, go get me team channel message. Go and say channel. So going back to earlier, I said, lots of teams have generated their own PowerShell. And there is a Teams PowerShell. And it does allow you to access the various provisioning type things, so you can get access to channels and teams. But what it doesn't have are the data plane stuff, being able to actually get at messages from within channels and within chats. So if I go here and I'm running this, but I don't actually know whether it doesn't like that because I don't have the appropriate scope. So let me show you the other one. Let's go mg chat. I can go and get the chats that I'm involved with, and I can go grab this chat here. And I can do get mg chat minus chat ID. It actually doesn't bring back very much interesting information. Even if I do like format list, there's really not much metadata associated to an individual chat. But what I can do is I can post a message to that chat. So I can say new MG chat message. And just so that I don't look like a complete fool, this is actually going to fail. Right? It's not recognized. The reason is because this is actually in beta. So we actually have to switch over to the beta profile to be able to use this. And now if it doesn't work, I'm going to look like a fool. Okay, so I'm going to try and do that, but I need some more parameters. I need to say what I am actually going to send as a chat message. So I know I'm posting to a particular chat, but what I'm going to post? Well, the parameter is body. Well, how do you know that? Let's just let's talk about that for a moment. Help get MG chat. And you can see here we have this in the help built in, and it tells me over here, somewhere in here. Oh, I'm looking at chat. I want to be able to get chat message. And I want to be able to say new chat message. New chat message. Okay, there we go. We get a little bit more stuff here. So there's this property called body. And we're working to bring this documentation out onto the web so it's in HTML format, so that it's a little bit easier to navigate. But if I actually grab this thing, this is the item body. And if I ask for this same help, but with full this time, and I don't even know, can I actually, no, I can't control F in here, but if I go back into this list and I go find the body, it's going to tell me what are the properties that I need in order. There we go. Microsoft Graph item body, I need a content and a content type value. So and actually the content type is optional. It just allows me to choose between text and HTML. So let's go back to my chat message and I say I want a body, but it's actually an object. So I just use the PowerShell syntax of how to create an object on the fly. And I say content equals hello from PowerShell. And if all works well, I can go over to my Teams message, that's Teams channel that's running over here. And there you go, at 11:13 a.m., at least my time, it says hello from PowerShell. And so there we go. We have the ability to actually create messages and do all of the things that you can do with the Teams API, but do it directly from PowerShell. Now, if you are looking for something else to really get you started, you can go to our Microsoft Graph PowerShell repo. We have a set of samples that are here, and there's a whole bunch of examples of how to do a variety of different things with Teams, and of course with all the other things that are available, creating new channel messages, using mentions. There's examples of all of those things, and we have examples of how to work with sites and drives and applications and registering new applications and working with mail messages, all kinds of things that are available in here. And also we have an example of how to create unattended scripts where you bring your own client ID, and so that there's actually no sign-in process necessary. And with that, I'm going to hop back to my last slide. And so please go try it out. Install the module from PowerShell. Now this works in both Windows and Linux. So it works on Windows PowerShell 5.1 and it works on the new PowerShell 7. And you can find the commands that are available, either searching for the just MG or all of the things in the Microsoft Graph modules. And please, if you find issues, report them to Microsoft PowerShell issues on GitHub. With that, I will hand it back over to Betty.
Thank you so much, Daryl and Elise. I really hope that you found this session helpful to spark interest for you on what Graph API it is and what you can create with it, and the tools that we have created to help you with that development journey. On the screen is some resources that you can use. We have links to our Graph Docs and some links to Graph Explorer, Graph Toolkit, and PowerShell SDK. We are going to paste them on the chat box so that it's easier for you to pick and use. And thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to you about Microsoft Graph. Thank you, Chris, for the opportunity, and also Vesco for the opportunity to talk to you about Microsoft Graph. Thank you.
That's really great, everyone. I just want to say thank you ever so much on behalf of all of us, because that was a great session. That's probably one of the best sessions that we've had in Teams Nation over the last couple of years. It was exactly what people wanted to see. It was hands-on. It was really easy to follow. So I just want to say thank you on behalf of everyone. So to now, I guess, let me just share my screen back. Okay, to the what's coming next. So the next meetup is on March the 22nd. So we're going to get past Ignite, and then a few weeks afterwards we'll have our next monthly meetup. We've got a couple of really interesting sessions for that. So one of them by Thierry Delande, which is mastering Teams with hotkeys and shortcuts on Windows, and then we've got a good friend of ours, Torsten Picken, who is going to be talking about local media optimization with Teams direct routing. So registration for this event is the same as every monthly meetup. Just go to our meetup site, meetup.com/TeamsNation/events, and you can sign up today. I think we've got about 40 that have already signed up, so about halfway for the number for this. So just a reminder about how you can get involved with us. We've got many different ways. We're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn. We have our meetup and our site at teamsnation.rocks/2021. If you would like to speak, please feel free. We're always on the lookout for new speakers that haven't spoken before. And as we said, it's very inclusive. It does not matter in your level of experience. If you're passionate and want to speak about Teams, about whether that's development or security or adoption or compliance or endpoints or devices, anything, I mean, we're looking for you. And if you want to speak with us, just go to teamsnation.rocks/CFS. This will be uploaded in the course of the next few days to our YouTube channel. I think we've just hit just over 1,000 subscribers on the channel. All of our monthly meetups are recorded there, as well as the sessions from our conferences. So just some important dates, just to kind of reiterate at the end of this session. First of all, Teams Nation Bangladesh, that's on Wednesday, 24th of February. There is the link to go and register and sign up for it today. A small pop-up conference, 6 sessions, and then after that pop-up conference, we will then begin a monthly meetup in Bangladesh, and that is going to be dual language as well. So and of course, after Bangladesh, and we have things up and running, if you're interested in running a Teams Nation monthly meetup in your country, then please reach out and contact. We'd love to be able to support that. Then, of course, as said, with our next monthly meetup, the 26th of May 2021, we then move on, and just a reminder about the main Teams Nation conference on the 26th of May. So the call for speakers is still open, sessionize.com/Teams Nation. The call for moderators is open until the end of this month. So that's open until the 28th. So only 6 days to go for the moderators. We are already reached out to some moderators and are starting to assemble a team. But if you're interested, then please feel free to come through to us. If you look at the headliners on Teams Nation, there's a lot of great speakers at Microsoft. There will also be lots of community leaders speaking at that event. But we have lots of slots open if you want to speak at the event. So please feel free to put your session in. And that's it. So, Vesku, Adam, is there anything you would like to add before we call it a day today?
I think you covered most of it, Chris, in an excellent way. And I don't know if you mentioned it, but this recording will be uploaded to our YouTube channel shortly, also as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you, Betty, Daryl, Elise. That was excellent.
Yeah,
super
excellent.
interesting to follow all that, and I guess it was one of the most or one of the kind of more coding style sessions we had than we had before. We had Rick Van Russell doing some hardcore stuff for us in previously, but usually it's much more kind of a power user style. So it was great to see something different this time, and of course learning a few things and trying to get over my ngrok and stuff here with all those hard letters following each other. Experiment with Visual Studio a bit more with Teams. That's a new kind of frontier to me. But I have been doing stuff with Graph, and it's been awesome to do demos with that and using PowerShell and Microsoft Graph. But then that's moving to the next level here.
Yeah, absolutely,
Well.
and we'd love to see the Graph API team in Teams Nation as well. I mean, I'm pretty sure, as Vesku says, we'll have some great developers that apply for the build and extend track. So I'm pretty sure that Rick Van Russo is going to, Yannick Riekmans, maybe Laura Kokorinen we might see as well. So it'll be great to have some presence, as it were, for the Graph API team. So hopefully. We might see a submission from yourselves as well. But I think we'll wrap up for today. It's been a really great day, and for once, I think we're under time, Vesku. But I would like to.
That's rare.
It is rare for us, I know. But I would just like to say thank you, everyone. Thank you, Betty, Elise, and Daryl for coming along to speak in your time. And we look forward to seeing everyone next month. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.